Okay, let's get to the aforementioned Tartan Day now. It's Tartan Day in the US. It's a day which celebrates Scottish history and the achievements of people of Scottish descent from around the world. And here to tell us more about it is Ian Houston, who's a Global Scotland author, business ambassador and honorary professor at the University of the West of Scotland. Good afternoon, Ian.
Andrew, it's lovely to be with you. Let me just say right off, thank you for BBC Radio Scotland and BBC Scotland generally. I think on these days that like Tartan Day, we need to say that more often. Thank you for the programming you do and what journalists are doing to further the story of Scotland and all its varieties. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Ian. Well, just tell us a bit about Tartan Day then, for people who don't know what exactly it is all about.
Well, Tartan Day was established by the United States Congress, so it's an official day, which is today, but it really extends celebrations throughout the month of April. It choreographs and links back to 1320 in the Declaration of Arbroath. So 730 years ago is a bit back in the history books, but often what Tartan Day allows us to do is focus on the history and the contributions of Scottish Americans, Canadian Americans, Scots in Australia. So Tartan Day is today, but it's a celebration of what's happening now in Scotland and partnerships that we can develop going forward. That's an exciting piece of the overall celebrations. In fact, Andrew, last night I was at the British Embassy, hosted by Ambassador Pierce, to organize in partnership with his Scottish office here in Washington and with this great organization called the Washington Tattoo. And Andrew, it was spectacular. It was music, values, and anthems, and dancing, food, and drink, of course, and wonderful people, full of goodwill. And you and your listeners would have been just so proud of how Scottish values were spotlighted at that event.
And it's also about economic ties, isn't it? Because of course, Scotland, does a lot of business in the US, especially when it comes to things like malt whiskey and salmon and that kind of thing.
It's huge. And that is, Andrew, such an important part of this overall celebration to develop strategies to whether it's economic strategies, philanthropic strategies, research. The thing is, mobilizing the diaspora for Scotland is incredibly valuable to philanthropy, to business, to research, to injecting funds into high streets back in Scotland, to small businesses that are struggling, charitable causes, universities and scholarships. All of that is huge and massive. So Tartan Day shows us the power and potential, not just commercial and economic, but philanthropic, charitable, education, research. So that piece of this holiday for me, Andrew, is always such a motivation. How do we more effectively mobilize and coordinate the diaspora in engagement, in diplomacy? Your last guest was speaking about President Biden. Well, President Biden will be in Northern Ireland next week. He'll be not too far from Scotland. He's been to Scotland, of course, before. But the motivation of people to give back to Ireland, to contribute for a variety of causes, for President Biden himself and how it drives him, is such a reminder of the power of diaspora and diplomacy, commercial activity, economics, education. So it's huge. And I think Scottish government is doing great things. I am a global Scot, as you said, and I'm proud to be a global Scot. Global Scot is doing wonderful things, but I sometimes hear global Scots say, well, I'm not asked to do things very often. And I say, well, hold on a second. So I'll maybe use an adage from President Kennedy from your previous guest that, remember, President Kennedy had that line of ask not. Well, I say ask not what global Scot or Scotland can do for you, but what you can do for global Scot and Scotland. And so it's a different way of thinking. The diaspora needs to be better mobilized. There's so much potential that's untapped. As good as the efforts are that are happening now, we can do more. And it's not just Scotland, it's the UK as well, could do more to mobilize diaspora for Wales and Northern Ireland and communities in England like Yorkshire and Cornwall that have real sort of diaspora movements within the US.
Okay, well, many thanks for joining us, Ian, and for flying the flag for Scotland in Washington, D.C. as well. That's Ian Houston there joining us to talk about Tartan Day in the US, which is happening today.